What is up, everyone? This is KhUnlimited. Welcome to episode 30 of Spill the Tearal, my JRPG podcast where I talk about JRPG news, releases, mechanics, what I've been playing, want to play, and more. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Trails in the Sky, their first remake announcement. Very fucking hype for me. My time with the VR JRPG that I've been playing a bit, a potential JRPG hot take I have, and more. So this is episode 30. I honestly can't believe we made it to 30. That just seems like a huge number for me. But as I always mention, if you are listening to this podcast on an audio service, remember to give it 5 stars or a thumbs up or whatever you have on your audio service. That is appreciated. It really helps in the performance of this podcast on audio services. And if you are watching on YouTube, remember to leave a like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you feel like is appropriate, and I'd appreciate that too. So from there, I just want to mention, like last episode, there may still be some echo from editing. Last episode, the echo wasn't as bad as I thought because this mic is, cardio, it doesn't really pick up much of it. I can hear the echo, but I think in the episode it was fine. And technically, it should be a bit better than last week because I have gotten more furniture since then, and so there's probably a bit more, sound dampening, but there is still some echo that I'm hearing, so hopefully it is not distracting. I'll try to audio treat this room more as I go on, but yeah, for now, this is how it sounds. Hopefully it is fine. That would be cool. I also have a Twitter at Spill the Tearal where I tweet once in a while about what I'm doing. Haven't tweeted that often, but I think I will because I have been playing some cool games, so I might be tweeting about that as I play it. And in terms of the cool stuff I want to show, I actually have a lot of stuff that I can show. I'm probably going to be showing it over time, over multiple episodes. But the first thing I want to show is a gift I got from my brother, which I'm going to grab right now. All right, I'm back. And so this is what I got. For the audio listeners, I will describe it. I'm trying to show it. It's pretty big in the frame, but it is pretty much a PlayStation VR 2 headset, which is really fucking cool. So this went on a massive sale in the last few days, and I think it's still on sale for some reason. And so at least in Canada, it's usually $700-800, and it was for $450 or something like that. And so my brother ended up just getting it for me. He has a Quest 3, he loves it. We both had a Quest 2, where we still have Quest 2s, but we don't use it that much. And so the VR 2 is something that I really wanted, but at the same time, I kind of wanted a Quest 3 too, so I didn't know which one to get. But since I'm kind of fully a PlayStation person, I just play all my games there and I prefer to PC. I thought this would make the most sense, so my brother got it for me, and I've been playing on it a bit. One of the games that I'm going to be talking about later in the episode is a game that I've been playing on that, which is very cool. But yeah, that was the cool thing that I want to show this episode because it's really fucking dope, and it is a pretty decent jump from the Quest 2 where it does feel more high res and it's easier to find the sweet spot when using. But yeah, PSVR 2 so far has been pretty good. And other than that, we're going to start the episode with the Spirited Away card. Almost forgot about it, left it on the side. But if I pick a random card, we will get the 2 of Spades, which is the main character with her parents kind of driving. I have no idea if I'm repeating these at this point because I just don't remember all the cards that I've done. So maybe there's repeats. I don't know. I'm not removing them from the deck or anything. But from here, we'll move on to the first segment, which is JRPG news that I think is dope. Now, in terms of the JRPG news this week, there is a bunch. Gamescom happened. There was also a Nintendo Direct, and there was a lot of events happening with a lot of JRPGs being announced. Like always, I don't cover every single JRPG news because that'd be fucking insane, especially this week where there are multiple events. Pretty much, I go over the big things, and if not that, just the things that I personally find interesting, which I'm more into the Kingdom Hearts, Trails games, or even if there's a new announcement which I think looks cool, I will mention it. So that's kind of how I cover the news. So this week I have maybe 5 or 6 news stories I'm going to talk about. I'm going to start with the most exciting one for me, which is the Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky, the first announcement for the Nintendo Switch. Now, the way I found out about this is funny because I was on YouTube, and in my subscription box I saw that Trails in the Sky was announced for Nintendo Switch, and I was like, holy shit, that's cool. They're actually finally bringing it to consoles, because from what I know, other than playing it on the PSP or whatever, you can only play it on Steam or on PC right now. And so when I saw it on the Switch, I was like, oh, that's cool, another way to play it. And then I just stopped thinking about it because I literally just thought it was an announcement of the existing game on Switch. Later in the day, in the evening, I saw a picture on Twitter, and then I saw a screenshot of the game, and I was like, wait, hold the fuck up, is this a remake? And then I looked into it, I'm like, oh shit, it is a remake. And it's funny that it's huge news in my opinion, but I just didn't really realize until later. And so yeah, Trails in the Sky, the first is what it's called. The original was called Trails in the Sky First Chapter, I believe, or FC, and so they're rebranding it to the first. I think it sounds fucking dope, and the game visually just looks beautiful. It's using what I assume is the modern engine. It looks very good. I still haven't played Daybreak yet, but at least when comparing it to Cold Steel, it does look better than Cold Steel from the screenshots I've seen. I haven't watched the trailer yet, and so I'm gonna be watching it live for the first time with you guys here, so we're gonna be doing that. But yeah, it's just very cool. Before going to the trailer, I did want to mention that it is only announced for the Switch so far, which I thought was pretty odd because if it was just like the original game on Switch, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. It's a pretty simple game, but it's a full modern remake and it's only on the Switch. And apparently Falcom was questioned about this and they said that the other platforms are to be discussed. They don't really have answers for that. And the only thing I can think about why that's happening is that they already have deals to announce it at other events. So for example, if there's a state of play in the future for PlayStation, maybe they'll announce a PlayStation version there. If it wasn't for that, I literally don't understand any other reason why they wouldn't announce it on other platforms or why it would be an exclusive to the Switch. If they made it exclusive to the Switch, this would be one of the biggest bungles in gaming. I swear to God, that'd be just stupid for what the game is. But I think they're probably just gonna announce like the PlayStation version at a state of play and the PC version at whatever PC showcases there are. And so that's my opinion of what's gonna happen. But we don't really know. But yeah, and also one more thing before getting to the trailer in terms of like localization and publishing. Right now it is said that it is coming out worldwide in 2025. I found that interesting because the Trails games in terms of localizations aren't quick. Like we are decently behind Japan in the Trails games they have. Only very recently we started getting like a lot more at a faster rate. And so when they said worldwide 2025, I was like, is it gonna be a worldwide release like day and date, or is it going to be a few weeks apart, or what's that going to be? But what surprised me even more is in the article that I was reading on Gamatsu, which is where I source everything from in terms of news, is they said that they don't have a localization partner yet, which I felt like was odd. I have no idea how quick or how soon in the process of game development you're supposed to get one, but if they have plans for a 2025 release, it's going to be 2025 in like, a few months, and they don't have a localization partner. I feel like that's weird because I'd assume translating in that takes time. And what they pretty much mention is they're going to try to find a local localization company, and if they don't, they will publish it themselves. And at least from what I know, have they ever done that for a Trolls game? Because from what I know, the early Cold Steel games and maybe Trolls in the Sky, they were localized by Xseed, and then at some point they moved to NIS America, and NIS America is what is currently publishing the current Trails games in the West. And so I thought it was kind of interesting that like they just didn't go with NIS America right away, or maybe they're in the talks with Xseed because I think they're the ones who published the original Trails games or the Sky games. I'm not completely sure, but I thought it was very interesting that they also mentioned that like they themselves, Falcom themselves, may be the ones to publish the game, which I don't know if they've ever done before. From my understanding, I'm not sure. I didn't really look too much into it, but yeah, I just thought that was very interesting where like it's not very clear how it's going to come to the West, and especially because they said it's going to come worldwide 2025. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, before I talk more about it, I thought it'd be fun to watch the trailer for the first time with you guys. So we're going to be watching it right now. So I'm going to be watching the Japanese version because the Japanese version is like nearly a minute long, where the English version I believe is only like 10-15 seconds. I'm going to be watching the Japanese version, and I'm going to be starting right now. And it shows the Nintendo Switch logo, and right off the bat showing Joshua playing his fucking harmonica. Shows us tell, yo, this looks so good. The first thing oh my god, the first thing I'm noticing is the lighting. It looks insane. She's got animations of her bow staff. Okay, it's introducing Estelle, and yeah, it's pretty much the models from the Cold Steel games. I'm really liking the outfits. I don't think we've seen Joshua with his outfit in 3D. They're at the Bracer Guild looking at potential jobs. Oh, you have her, I forgot her name, but the one at the Bracer Guild who gives you jobs. Yeah, it pretty much looks like Cold Steel, but the lighting looks, oh wait, hold up. The battle system looks interesting. Okay, I was trying to see if it's gonna be turn-based or real-time. It still seems to be turn-based from what I can tell. Yo, the character models look fucking good. Oh yeah, Charizard, very cool. Okay, so that's the entire trailer. Honestly, that's a decent look. That was more than I thought. Okay, so to break it down just from what I saw, I was very curious to see what the battle system was going to be because they actually wrote a bit about it. Let me try to find what they wrote. But pretty much what they said is that the world was going to be seamless, so you'd be able to go from field to towns seamlessly, and that it would be a command-based battle system. Now, to break that down, in terms of the seamless part, I'm not completely sure what that means because technically, even in the Trolls of Cold Steel games, you can go from the field to town, but there is a transition. Like it's kind of like a classic JRPG where you got to hit an invisible wall that fades out and fades into the town. I don't know if that's what they mean by seamless, or whether it's going to be a thing where like you straight up are in the field and you can just walk into the town with no loading. If it's that, if there's no loading, that's I think a new thing. Again, I didn't play Daybreak. Maybe they have it in that too. But if it is like that, that's a pretty fucking huge jump from obviously Trolls in the Sky, which looks like a PSP game. So that's very cool. In terms of the battle system, they mentioned that it's a command style battle system. And when I read that, I didn't know what that meant because that technically could allude to either real time or turn based. And while the original was turn based, I do know that the future Trails games, the plan they have is to fully go into real time. So I was very curious to see what they would do for this game because this is a new game, but it's a remake of an old game, what they would do. And when I was watching the trailer, at first I thought it was real time because Estelle just hit an enemy and without loading or transition or anything, it just went straight into the battle. So I'm like, oh shit, is it real time? But then from what I saw, I think it was turn-based because the bad guys were still and she was choosing her attacks and it was showing the different area of effect damages that she could do. So from what I can tell, it looks turn-based and it pretty much looks like an evolved version of the Trails of Cold Steel battle system. It doesn't look exactly the same because the Trails of Cold Steel battle system has a very iconic like UI, how you choose like attack, item, command style, whatever. But the UI was slightly different, but it did look turn-based still, which is good for me because I do prefer the turn-based style, and I am kind of sad to see Trails go the real-time route because I think Trails was like not one of the last games, but one of the games where I like really appreciated that it stayed turn-based in the modern era of real-time fighting games. So it is sad to see them go to the real-time route, but the fact that this is still turn-based is cool because we're going to have this game, we're potentially going to have a second game, and then who knows if they'll do the third game because that was a pretty weird one compared to the first two. And now that I think about it, it is pretty interesting that they are doing it, that it is called Trails in the Sky there first. I honestly wouldn't have been surprised if it was just called Trails in the Sky and they took the first two games and just like crunched them together because since this is a remake, and I don't know if they've done a remake on this scale yet for Trails, I believe, I'm not sure, we don't really know how they're going to adapt the original story. Like, is it going to be one-to-one and they just straight up just do it in 3D? Is it going to add content to allude to future stuff? Because this technically is the first game in the long line of Trails games they have now. We're like on the 11th, 12th game or something like that in the West, and so this is the first of that series. So like they have a lot of opportunity to add stuff or allude to future characters if they really want to, and it'd be very cool for people who have played the entire series to go back to it and kind of like see these Easter eggs. But at the same time, it is a modern remake. Modern games usually are more expensive to make and they're usually shorter. I wouldn't be surprised if they start cutting stuff, and I don't know what they would cut. I don't really have Trails in the Sky that fresh in my mind, but if there were any segments that felt like filler or felt like they just did it to extend the game, maybe they'll just entirely cut it out. I'm not sure. I hope they keep it one-to-one or add stuff, but like at the same time, the state of game development now compared to when they made Trails in the Sky first chapter is so different that I wouldn't be surprised if they start cutting stuff and making changes. And honestly, to think about it like overall, I'm not sure which I would prefer because right off the bat, I'd be like, no, I want a one-to-one to the original. But at the same time, is like, it'd be kind of nice to have it kind of different because you can still play the original. It's there on Steam, but like maybe if they add new stuff, if they add new mechanics, it would be cool. And to kind of seamlessly transition to that, I am very curious to see which mechanics they would add if they did any, because funnily enough, I believe it was on episode 16 of Spill the Tearal. I literally had a segment of me looking forward to a JRPG, and I talked about a Trails in the Sky remake, and I talked about exactly what I would want in it. And so I kind of already gave my thoughts of what I would want in a remake, and I even mentioned that I don't think it's ever happening or anytime soon. It may happen like within the next 10 years, and the fact that it happened like a few months later is funny. But I mentioned in that something that I would maybe want is like a bonding mechanic or something, because that is such a big thing in Trails of Cold Steel, and other mechanics that are team-based, because as you bond with the character, you actually get more abilities to do with them in battle. So like that's one thing where I'm like, maybe they'll add it in this. Who knows? I don't know if they can, because there's not that much of a team based aspect in Trails in the Sky compared to Cold Steel. It's mostly you and Joshua, or Estelle and Joshua, and later you get more people kind of like temporarily. So we'll see how that works, but it's just very interesting and exciting to see how exactly they're gonna, change stuff in this remake. And just kind of like a few more points that I want to mention that I noticed is I kind of like that they kept the speech boxes in the game, like the classic style. It kind of looks like parchment paper, where like if you look at the Trails of Cold Steel games, there's kind of like more sci-fi blue transparent box, where Trails in the Sky usually had a more classic look, I believe. And the fact that they kept the classic look for the UI, where like, yeah, the speech boxes are this parchment looking paper, I thought was a pretty cool detail. And to end off this new segment, I will end off with the description of the game. Probably should have started with this, but it is an orthodox story that depicts the journey of two companions. The protagonists are Estelle and her partner Joshua, who aspire to become bracers, protectors of peace in the region. As they take their first steps as apprentice bracers, the duo travels across the Liberal Kingdom, resolving various requests and incidents in each place they visit, gaining experience as bracers along the way. And yeah, if you've played the game, you obviously know that, but it's very cool to see the beginning of the journey again, because if you play the game, you know how they end up in the future. But yeah, we will end off this new story have chosen this guy first and go to the next one, which is a game called Metro Quester Osaka, which is announced for the PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. Now, let me just read this description here, which is Kemco has announced Metro Quester Osaka for PS5, Xbox, blah, blah, blah. It is a console port of the 1,000 games developed by Dungeon RPG Quester Osaka, which is currently available for PC on Steam. It will launch on September 13th. And I saw this game and like clearly it says it's a remake. And I looked at the version that's on Steam. It's a very interesting looking game. It's not what I expected. It very much looks like I don't even know if old school is the right word. Like it looks like almost like a text-based game. It isn't. There is graphics. Like the graphics are pretty much like a black screen with the green UI. Like it's that type of vibe, like almost like a DOS type vibe. And there's like a 2D version of a map, which I guess you move your characters on. The battles are completely UI based, where like it just shows your characters on the left, like in boxes. It shows the enemies on the right in boxes, and I guess you battle through that. So it's very like old school looking. And there's more of a description I can read here of that version, which is Metro Quester Osaka is a dungeon exploration RPG based on post-apocalyptic futuristic world created by the manga artist Kazushi Hagiwara, with a deep game quest system designed by Hironari Kato that offers excitement and surprises reminiscent of 1980s computer games through hack and slash. Yes. And so yeah, based on what they said, the 1980s computer games, it is a very like old school looking game. The UI again, green on black. And I don't know if this new remake is like, I don't know if it's just a port and it's gonna look exactly like this, or are they actually remaking it to be like a 3D game or something. I'm not 100% sure, but if I had to guess, it's probably gonna be the former. I think they're literally just porting it over because the art of the game that they chose for the new story for like the new versions that are coming is the exact same one on PC and Steam. And if that's the same, I'm gonna assume the game is the same too. But yeah, this game, I thought it's not one that I would ever play, but I thought was kind of weird and interesting enough that I thought I would mention it here. But yes, that was Metro Quester Osaka, which is coming to all the consoles pretty much on September 13th. The next news story is for Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince, and it's coming to PC, iOS, Android on September 11th. And I thought this was very interesting because I've heard of this game and I saw it, and it's very cool to see that it's coming on mobile platforms. I personally am a fan of that because there's so much games on mobile now which are like console quality, like Wuthering Waves, Zenless Zone Zero, Genshin Impact, where there really isn't an excuse for JRPGs not to be on mobile, because if those games are on mobile, a lot of JRPGs can be on mobile, especially like the 2D ones. And so this game coming on mobile, I think is pretty dope. It's just a fucking huge audience that they that there's a potential to sell to. And yeah, and like based on what I can tell from reading the description, this Dragon Quest game isn't like a traditional Dragon Quest game. It is one focused more on monsters, and I believe the character you're playing as is a monster wrangler, and he's trying to become like the best monster wrangler in the world or something by creating an army of monsters. It seems very cool. That's not something I believe I've seen in Dragon Quest before. I'm not that familiar with the series. The only one I've played is Dragon Quest 11, and I'm pretty much done it, but I haven't finished it. But I thought it was very cool, and I also really like the MC's design. I've seen this game here and there, and I thought the MC with the gray hair and the red eyes just always looked cool, especially because at least for Dragon Quest 11, I've never been that much of a fan with how the main character looks, so I thought this one did look a bit cooler personally. But yeah, Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince is coming to PC, iOS, and Android on September 11th. And from here, the next news story is Atelier Yumiya, The Alchemist of Memories and the Envisioned Land, is announced for PS5, Xbox, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. So pretty much everything. Now, there wasn't much I can find about this, and there's not much I want to say about it. The only reason I brought it up is because I played Atelier Ryza a bit on Steam. I played it and I got to the point where I was crafting a lot and giving everyone armor and new weapons, but there was a boss that was like really fucking hard, and I thought that it was a boss that you're supposed to die on. Like that's how hard it was, where I just got like completely wiped. But then like, no, you actually have to beat it. And I kept trying to do my alchemy, collect materials, craft new armor and weapons, but I was just not able to beat the boss, so I just kind of dropped the game. But I did enjoy the game from what I played of it, and so I think it's cool that we're getting another Atelier game. And at least personally, for the longest time, like whenever I see Atelier games, I've always seen Ryza. I know there's like a fuck ton of Atelier games before that, but whenever I saw like a modern Atelier game, it was always a Ryza one, because I believe it's like a trilogy. So I just thought it was very cool to see like a new Atelier game called Atelier Yumiya not come out, and kind of see how that's gonna do. So maybe that's something I'll look into when it comes out. But yes, it is a game that does look somewhat interesting to me. And from here, we'll move on to another news story, which is Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster, Gate, Rune, and Dunan Unification Wars as PS5 and Xbox Series versions, and it launches on March 6th, 2025. Now, there's a description, so I guess I'll read this first before getting into it, which is: a once renowned hero turns into a violent tyrant, and an empire falls into decline. A liberation army is rising up in an active rebellion against an oppressive rule. One by one, for 108 stars of destiny gather to shape the course of history. Now, the description that I just read is actually for the first Suikoden. I'm not reading the second one in case it kind of like spoils the first one or something. But the reason I brought this up is because I can't 100% remember if it was this game, but I remember there was a JRPG I really want to play. So once in a while when I'm very bored, I will Google JRPGs that like you should play, whether it be old ones or new ones or whatever. And I believe Suikoden was one that I was very close to trying to play, but people were saying like, don't play it right now. There is a remaster coming out soon. Just wait for it. And I believe like I want to play like years ago, like maybe a year or two ago. So now that it's coming out on PS5, this will be a good chance for me to try it. I'm not sure when I'll try it. I pretty much is whenever I'm bored, I think of trying new JRPG, so maybe I'll try it then. But it sounds pretty interesting from the story. And just from the description, they also mentioned that the difference between the original is that they have graphical improvements, new character drawings, sound improvements, game system improvements, which are pretty much quality of life things, etc. So pretty much the normal things you expect from like a remake, not really a remake, but a remaster almost. So yeah, and based on what I can see from the video, it's a 2D pixel art game with turn-based battles. And so yeah, that was Suikoden. And the last news story, which is really not a story, I just want to mention it, is that there is a new Metaphor ReFantazio trailer called Travel Beyond Fantasio. I'm not watching it. I believe I mentioned this before, but like at this point, I think I've seen enough of the game where like I will try it at some point when it comes out, but I don't need to see more of this game. They've kind of sold me on it. And so I'm not going to be watching the trailer, but I want to let you know in case you are interested and want to watch it. And also they did announce that they're going to be having another stream on August 29th, kind of announcing new stuff. As they do with these streams, they announce like new things about combat or new things about story. I probably won't be covering it. I'll probably mention it when it happens, but it is happening on August 29th, which is tomorrow from when I'm recording this. And yeah, that pretty much covers all the news. That was a lot of news, but it was kind of nice because I feel like the last few episodes have been kind of slow in terms of that. But from here, we will move on to the next segment, which is JRPGs that are releasing this week. In terms of the JRPG releases this week, I sourced them as always from RPGsite.net and IcicleDisaster.com. And this week we got 3 games that are releasing, and the days that I'm covering is from August 25th to August 31st. And so we're going to be starting off with a game called Gundam Breaker 4, which is going to be releasing on PC on the 28th of August, which is today as I'm recording this. And the short description is, in Gundam Breaker 4, you will create and customize your own powerful gunpla and put it to the test in thrilling combat missions. That is all. And pretty much from what I can tell from watching gameplay, it is literally just a 3D Gundam fighter. So as they said, you can customize your own gunpla and you can just fight each other in the game. So not much more to talk about it. I think it looks cool if you're a fan of Gundam. I don't see why you wouldn't really be interested in this. But yeah, Gundam Breaker 4 coming out on PC on the 28th of August. The next game, which is a pretty huge release, is Visions of Mana, coming out on PS5, PS4, Xbox Series, and PC on the 29th of August, which is tomorrow from when I'm recording this. And the description is, the protagonist Val and his childhood friend Hina, the newly appointed Alma Fire, set off on a journey to the Mana Tree. This game's iconic, vibrant, and fast semi-open field contains adorable yet ferocious monsters, allowing you to enjoy swift, three-dimensional battles using the power of elementals. Through adventures with friends met along the way, they start to see the truth about the world. I feel like I've read that logline like a few times on this podcast already, but yeah, Visions of Mana is finally coming out. I said that I'm pretty interested in the game, that I want to try it out, and it is going to be in my backlog of games that I'm going to try it out at some point. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. Fucking Trails of Daybreak, or Trails Through Daybreak, has been out for a while now, and they've already announced the second one, and I still haven't touched that. It's literally right here on my shelf beside me. I just haven't had the time to actually start that because I have to finish Reverie first before moving on to that. And I know for a fact that when I finish Daybreak, it's likely going to be my game of the year. No doubt about that, unless they fuck it up somehow. So yeah, I want to try Visions of Mana, but I want to finish that first. But Visions of Mana is coming out tomorrow, 20th of August, on PS5, PS4, Xbox Series, and PC. And the final release is Witchspring R, which is coming out on PS5, Xbox One, Switch on the 29th of August, which is also tomorrow from when I'm recording this. And the logline is, Witchspring R is a story-driven RPG combining elements of collecting, simulation, and battling. Experience the joy of training a young witch and accompany her on a grand adventure. And based on the description and what I've seen, it kind of reminded me a bit of Atelier. I don't know how similar it is, but in Atelier, you're collecting stuff, you're using alchemy, you're making things. And so this kind of gave me the same vibe of it. I'm not sure if it's that similar, but at least when looking at the trailer, visually is very beautiful. Honestly, like the animations of like the magic they were using, like the Thunderbolt, I thought was very cool. It has 3D graphics, it has beautiful animation, as I mentioned. And yeah, not really much more to say. In terms of the combat, I couldn't tell exactly what it was from the trailer. I think it's turn-based, but there wasn't really any UI to kind of hint at whether it was or not. But from like the movement of characters, it seemed turn-based, but that's at least what I could tell from the trailer that I watched of it. And yeah, those are the 3 releases of the JRPGs that are releasing this week. And from here, we'll move on to the next segment, which is a JRPG mechanic that I think is dope. Now, in terms of the JRPG mechanic that I think is dope, this is going to be one of those weeks where it may be a hot take, because I think this is something that people don't like I do. And what I'm talking about is cliffhangers at the end of games, or even in general, cliffhangers in general, like I like, but I know a lot of people don't. And I feel like I know that people don't like it is because, at least from what I see it often in, is in manga. Usually a lot of manga chapters end with cliffhangers. And for me, like the way I see cliffhangers is a full positive, where I'm like, yeah, end the chapter off with a cliffhanger because that's going to make me want to read the next chapter. That's literally the goal of the mangaka, to kind of make you keep reading the series. And so whenever a chapter ends with a cliffhanger, I'm like, dope, I want to read the next chapter. But at least from what I've seen online, at least, a lot of people don't like cliffhangers. But to speak specifically about cliffhangers in terms of JRPGs, there's been a few of them where they had jaw-dropping cliffhangers for me, where I was literally playing the game, they said something, and then the game just ended, and I was like, what the fuck, are we actually ending like this? And so I'll be talking a bit about those. And I guess before I say the game or like the cliffhanger part, I will preface that it's going to be a spoiler, and then you can skip past it. So yeah, I won't just be spoiling indiscriminately. I will tell you when I'm about to spoil. But yeah, I just think cliffhangers are just a good way of keeping interest. And I feel like the whole point of art, and that includes games, is to get an emotional reaction out of people, whether it's a good reaction or bad reaction, I'm not sure. And so cliffhangers, I think, usually do have an emotional reaction. Like I just mentioned, there are certain games that literally were jaw-dropping to me, and so the fact that it's able to get that kind of reaction out of me, I think, is successful. And if they're able to do that, I just think it's a good thing, and I don't think it's a negative thing at all. So to actually get into the games I'm talking about, there are two that I specifically remember. One is Trails of Cold Steel 2, and the other is Kingdom Hearts 3. So in terms of Trails of Cold Steel 2, I'll be spoiling it. If you don't want to get spoiled, or if you don't want to get spoiled about any game, you could just probably skip to the next segment. Or if you don't want to get spoiled about the specific game, just skip like a couple minutes probably. But in Trails of Cold Steel 2, pretty much what happens is you are fighting a character who's an enemy. And he wasn't really like a villain in the game. He was just like a guy. But as you're fighting them, I believe here it's pretty much revealed that not only are they the main villain of the series, but it's revealed that they are your father, like in terms of like you are as the main character. So that was like a huge fucking moment. But the funny thing is not like it was leading up to a moment where it felt like it was an ending. He pretty much just dropped that knowledge bomb. The screen went black, and then I think it said like to be continued or something, or the credits started rolling. And I remember when I was playing, I was like, what the fuck? Did it really end like that? And I was so happy because I had, the day before getting to that part, I had ordered Trails of Cold Steel 3 on Amazon. And I think maybe like 20 minutes before ending the game, I had gotten the game delivered. So I had it like right there with me. And so right when the game ended, I was like, thank fuck, I can just put in Trails of Cold Steel 3 and play it right away. And it was like, when that ending of the game, I thought was fantastic. I loved it. I bet a lot of people hate the ending because people don't like cliffhangers. They want everything to be like tied and like perfectly. And like, from what I can tell, a lot of people like being spoon-fed everything in terms of like that type of stuff. I don't. I think like if there's an open ending or if there's a cliffhanger, that's completely fine, whatever the intention of like the creator is. And for me, at least the way I think about it is, if the ending is not the actual ending of the series, that's cool. The cliffhanger is cool. So for example, if that happened at the end of the Trail series and there was never a Trails game again, that'd be fucking weird. Like that's just like trying to get an emotion out of the audience for no really real reason. But because we know there is a Trails of Cold Steel 3, and at least for me, because it was already out, there's absolutely no problem, because like, yeah, it was just like a cool ass ending and there's another game to continue playing, so it's very cool to me. So that was an ending that I really liked. And it's funny because the more I think about it, I think all the Cold Steel games end cliffhangery. I won't be talking about them specifically, but I want to say Trails of Cold Steel 1 was a cliffhanger too. I'm kind of remembering what happened. I think Trails of Cold Steel 3 was also a cliffhanger because that leads right into 4. So like, I think the Cold Steel games just kind of like having cliffhangers. So yeah, maybe that's why I like the series a lot. Obviously, that's not the only reason, but yeah, the Cold Steel games are great games if you like cliffhangers. And the next game that I want to talk about is Kingdom Hearts 3. And again, if you don't want to hear the spoiler, I would just say skip to the next segment. This is gonna be the final thing I'm going to talk about in this segment. But pretty much what happens is, Kingdom Hearts 3 is obviously like this like ultimate end of the series game. It is finally ending off the saga that was every single Kingdom Hearts game we've gotten so far. And throughout the games, you pretty much play as Sora, or at least most of the games you play as Sora. And the way the game ends is you pretty... I've only played Kingdom Hearts 3 once, I don't remember specifically, but you do the entire finale. It's Sora sitting with Kairi, which is like the main female lead. They're talking, and you slowly notice Sora fade away. And then you realize that Sora pretty much sacrificed himself to save her. And that was the ending. And I remember like I was playing, I'm like, oh, this is a good ass fucking finale. And Sora faded away, the screen went black, they started playing some good ass music, and then the credits started scrolling, and I was like, what the fuck? Are they ending it like this? And later, like through Melodies and Memories, and I believe DLC or some shit, you find out what happened to Sora. He's not dead or anything. But like when that happened, like that was like, I'm like, that's a perfect ending. Like that, like if the creators are able to get that emotion of the audience of being like, what the fuck just happened? I think they succeeded, and they definitely did that with me. And so that was an ending where I'm like, whenever I feel like that at the end of the game, at the end of a game where I'm like, what happened? Like, I want to Google this. Like, what the fuck? Like, I want people's opinions on what happened. And this game did that. I think that's just a great job. And so that's just another ending where like that like is a fucking massive cliffhanger. And we found out soon after what happened to Sora again through like other games and stuff like that. But like, yeah, that's also an example. Like, if that was the final Kingdom Hearts game, and they ended off with Sora just fading away and then credits rolled, I'll be like, what the hell is that? Like, what does that even mean? Like, if we never got the answer, that would be fucking bullshit. But because I know there are going to be more Kingdom Hearts games and they're going to answer the question and we're going to see why that happened, it's fine. So like in that aspect, like I'm fine with cliffhangers. So yeah, that's pretty much what I want to talk about in terms of JRPG mechanic that I thought that was fun. Like I know cliffhangers aren't technically mechanics, but like I think it's just a cool device you get to use in a story, and it always works well on me. I know it doesn't work well on everyone, but that was my hot take for this episode. But yeah, from here we'll move on to the next segment, which is a JRPG that I'm looking forward to. Now, in terms of a JRPG I'm looking forward to, this is kind of a cheat answer, but it is going to be Trails in the Sky the First. The reason it is a cheat because in episode 16, I believe it was 16, I pretty much did Trails in the Sky remake for the segment about a potential Trails in the Sky remake that could happen, and that's what I talked about in the segment. And so it is pretty much going to be the same thing, so I'm not going to be talking about it too much. This is probably going to be a shorter segment because I've already talked about this, but I did want to make it an official, part of the segment because it is a JRPG that I'm really looking fucking forward to because it is just very exciting. And as I mentioned in the new segment, if you've kind of listened to the other part of this episode, is that I'm just very excited to see exactly how they adapt the old games. I don't know if it's going to be one-to-one. I don't know if they're going to cut things. I don't know if they're going to add things. If I had to choose what I want, the simple answer would be is just to do one-to-one because it is a very successful story. People know it, people love it. But at the same time, we are able to play the original game anyway. So if they do want to get creative with this, I'd be okay with it. Honestly, my favorite thing would probably be is if they just kept it one-to-one and added stuff like Easter eggs or allusions to future parts of the games or like just extra content. That would be very cool. But if they did make the decision to cut stuff due to whatever reason, I may not like it, but honestly, I would understand it because game development is just a different landscape today, and like I can see why they would need to do that. But yeah, in terms of like that aspect of the remake, I'm very much looking forward to it. I talked about this too, but like I'm very interested to see if they evolve any of the mechanics that goes on in Trails in the Sky. Trails in the Sky from like all the Trails games is just very simple, where like you have the combat and you don't really have any mechanics other than leveling up. And I'm trying to even remember, can you even do like, I think you can, like where you set your Sepith and Quartz and stuff to get different abilities. I believe you can still do that in Trails of the Sky, I believe. But other than that, there's not really much you can do. Where Trails of Cold Steel, you have, a lot more. You have arts, which Trails of the Sky does have. You have combat arts. You have bonding mechanics. You have like team-based stuff. You have like your S abilities, I think they're called, or S crafts. And I can't remember exactly what of those is available in Trails of the Sky. But the point is, if they're remaking Trails in the Sky, I can see them adding all of that to Trails in the Sky since those are such normal things in the modern Trail series. I haven't played Trails through Daybreak, so I don't know how they handle in that, whether all that is things in that series. But at least from Cold Steel, like if they added S-crafts, arts, combat arts, like everything, bonding mechanics, like I would understand. But there's some things like, for example, bonding mechanics are something that I really love in Trails of Cold Steel because it's just a good way to get plot from characters, but also it actually helps you in terms of combat because if character A bonds with character B a lot, they will be stronger together in battle, which I think is very cool. So I wonder if that is going to be a thing in Trails in the Sky the First. But like the thing is, like, there isn't really a strong party mechanic in Trails of the Sky. I feel like later in the series you do get characters, Olivier, Josette, and you get like random characters here and there, Agate, but like they're characters that like come into your party for a while and they leave. It's more kind of like classic JRPG, and so if they leave, I don't see why they would have bonding mechanics. There would really be no reason to bond with them. So the only thing I can think of is if they did have bonding mechanics, it would be very interesting if they created, I'm not sure what it would be, if they created a whole new bonding system just for Estelle and Joshua. Now, I don't know what that would be. Again, like I don't know what that would look like because there's really no choice in that. It would just be like if you're playing as Estelle, it's like you just go to Joshua and talk to him, I guess, which isn't really a mechanic. But I wonder if they did something between the two, because I'm not going to spoil it, but their relationship together changes a lot throughout the series, and it's very interesting to see like what happens to them throughout the series, how it changes, how they go together, apart, etc., etc. I won't say more than that, but the relationship is so interesting where if they did have bonding mechanics to have them get closer throughout this game and then see exactly what happens to them in the future games, I think it would hit harder what happens in the future games if we get to bond with them in this game. But again, I literally have no idea what the bonding mechanics could be, because if it's just talking, which I usually am fine with bonding mechanics, that's just not really a mechanic because you don't have any choice. Maybe it could be like a mini game thing where you get to, I don't know, fucking hang out. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe like at certain towns you get to hang out, like you're playing as Estelle, you get to hang out with Joshua and you get to pick what you want to do. Like, do you want to go on a walk? Do you want to get ice cream? Do you want to go shopping? I don't know. And then there's like a mini cutscene based on that thing. You know what? Actually, yeah, that's something that could work. If they do bonding mechanics, it'd be cool if you have to hang out with each other if you want to, and then you get to choose the activity, and based on that, you get a different boost or whatever the hell, like a stat boost. So yeah, that's something that's an example of a mechanic they can add in the remake, and I wonder if they're going to add other mechanics like that, whether it be something that's borrowing from the future of the series, or whether it's something that's just completely new, like this kind of newish bonding mechanic. But yeah, again, I don't have too much more to add because I already talked about everything I wanted in a remake of Trails in the Sky in episode 16, and I also talked a bit about this a bit more in the news section of this episode. But yeah, Trails in the Sky, the first cool ass fucking game. I'm very excited, and I'm very interested to see how they adapt it, but probably when they adapt number 2 and how they adapt that, and whether they do a number 3. That's very interesting to me, because I could see them just being like, nah, we don't need to adapt that, or them just, I don't know how they would do 3. It's just a very different game from Trolls in the Sky. If they did number 3, honestly, I would want it to be just like branded differently. Like, don't make it Trolls in the Sky the third, call it like something with Kevin, like something with the Septian Church or some shit. That'd be something fucking cool, and then make that a standalone game. I think that would be a much better choice than them calling it Trolls in the Sky the third and just having it be a game barely about Estelle and Joshua. But yeah, that ends off this segment of talking about Trolls in the Sky the first, a JRPG I'm looking forward to. And from here we'll go on to the next segment, which is what I've been playing. In terms of what games I've been playing for the past week, there are 2 games that I've been playing. Each of them I played a little bit. I've actually played a lot of games, but these are like the most JRPG-ish, so I'll mention them. The first one is a game called Dragonball Project Multi, and the second one is called Ruins of Magus, which is a VR JRPG game. So first I'm going to go over Dragonball Project Multi very quickly. It's not really a JRPG, but I kind of like bundle in Dragon Ball games into this podcast because I love Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball games I feel like are pretty big in terms of Japanese games. And this game is very interesting because I saw this on Twitter. It's called Dragon Ball Project Multi. It is a mobile game. So like they have Dokkan Battle, they have Legends, and now they have this. And when I saw it, first of all, the visuals look really fucking cool. It looks better than like Xenoverse or anything like that, honestly. Low key, I love Sparking Legends. It kind of looks better than Sparking Legends 2 in terms of the visual style. But I thought it was like an auto battler or something, so I wasn't that interested in it. But turns out they're having a beta right now, which like anyone can play. So I just downloaded the app, tried playing it, and I played a couple of games. And it's actually a really fun and interesting game. I'm not going to be playing it anymore because from what I can tell, your progress does not transfer to the full game when it comes out. So I don't want to waste time pulling characters that I'm not going to be able to get to keep. So I'm not going to play it for that reason. But pretty much what it is a 3v3 online multiplayer game. And pretty much what you do is you're trying to kill the God of Destructions of the other team. And once you kill them, you have to steal the other team's Dragon Ball. And once you have the Dragon Ball, you win. And the way the gameplay is, it is pretty much like a track from left to right. One team starts on the left, one team starts on the right. And you have this very like zoomed out, almost isometric view of your characters. And you pretty much have to control your character and move around. You have different attacks you can use. So if you're using Goku, you have maybe like Explosive Wave, Kamehameha, Ki Blast. You have Super Saiyan you can turn into, which kind of increases the radius of each of the attacks. And it is a real-time combat game. Like you are moving like live. I would say it's kind of like MMO style where like you use an attack. For example, if you use Kamehameha, you can aim it as you're using it, but then you'll have to wait, for example, like 5 seconds to use it again. But that's pretty much the gameplay of the game. And I can already tell that it doesn't vary a lot because when I did the tutorial, all they had to do was move to the other side, defeat a God of Destruction, and there's an entire mechanic with that where you have to wait for like this godly being called Zeno to kind of help you with it. And then after you beat the God of Destruction, I had to get the Dragon Ball, and I won. But when I actually went into an online match, it was way longer. It took like 10 to 15 minutes. We had to kill 3 God of Destructions on the other team. There was this entire like back and forth you had to do where we were winning a bit and then the other team was winning, and we kept going back and forth. There were a lot of like NPCs, like CPU NPCs, the computer NPCs that you had to fight on the way too. So you weren't only fighting real people, you were fighting like random grunts too while you were playing to kind of keep you busy. You had to fight the multiple god of destructions, and then at the end you got to try to break out the Dragon Ball and steal it. So I played that one actual multiplayer game. We won. I was the one able to get the Dragon Ball, so I killed it there. But it was really fun. I don't know how the difficulty is going to work because I honestly wasn't paying that much attention to my health. And so like maybe it was a fake game with fake people. The username seemed real, honestly, but I thought it was fun. I was able to like kill them multiple times, but you come back alive. I never died. And yeah, we won like in 10 to 15 minutes. So yeah, it's a very interesting game. And as I mentioned, it's in beta right now. So if you want to wait for the full game, you'll have to wait. I believe it's going to be on Steam too. I do remember seeing a Steam listing for it, but honestly, with the type of game this is, I'd rather just play it on mobile because it's such a simple game where like you might just pull it off for like 20 minutes and play. I can't really see myself, sitting down at my PC and playing this for an hour or anything like that. But yeah, it's called Dragon Ball Project Multi, probably for multiplayer. And the next game that I want to talk about is called Ruins of Magus. Now, this game is really fucking cool. And so, as I mentioned earlier on this episode, my brother got me a PSVR 2. And one of the things that I want to do, at least on my Quest 2 that I never got to do, but I want to do on this for sure, was I wanted to try actual RPGs or JRPGs in VR, because the games that I usually played were like co-op short games with my brother, or like arcadey games like Beat Saber, but I never actually tried like a full-on proper story-based immersive game. Kind of like the dream would be something like Sword Art Online or something like that. I was looking at games, and there's this one game that I wanted to get. I can't remember the name right now, which is like a trilogy, I believe, of JRPGs, but I found Ruins of Magus. It was just there. It was on sale usually for $40. I got it for $20, and I went into it and I really fucking love it. Now, I only played it one time so far, one session, and it was, I believe, like an hour and a half to 2 hours. And from what I can tell, like, yeah, it feels like a JRPG. So in terms of like how the game starts, you're in this town, you're like this magician looking dude, and pretty much the way it works in this world is, I can't remember the exact terms, but you're pretty much like a fighter, like a magician, and you get paired with a researcher, and you guys pretty much have to go into a dungeon to do research, and that's kind of like the game loop. And so there's this girl who's a researcher. She comes, and because you're in VR, like, you literally just get to talk to her. So I'm literally looking down at her because like she's really short for some reason, and she's talking to me. They do some really cool things where like the game starts, you're talking to her, and when the game like actually fully starts, she kind of grabs your hand and pulls your body away from like your point of view, and then the camera just zooms out and you're looking at the town from like up above, and then the music kind of like pipes in, and it's very fucking cool. Like it felt very weird because she grabbed my hand, so I just put my hand out, but then like the body just went away from me and it zoomed out. So I thought that was a very cool feeling that I never really experienced in VR, which was dope. And in terms of like what you actually do in the game, there isn't like too much town exploration so far, which I think is usually a big part of JRPGs. Again, I only played it for an hour, but the very little I can do is there's this very small town square with like a lot of random NPCs, which some you can talk to. So I've talked to some. They give you some tips. Some of them will just mention some lore things. There are randomly books just strewn around places. So there's like this one book for some reason that's in the town square you can pick up, and you could just read it and then put it back down. It's really fucking cool because you literally pick up the book, read it, and put it down. And I've unlocked a few other areas. So it's not like a JRPG where like you can, for example, if there's like a shopping district, it's not like I actually walk to the shopping district in town, but what they have is in this town square, they'll just have like a UI element that says like, go to the shop, and then I will press it and I will be teleported to the shop. So that's how they're doing it, instead of like having you walk there, which I don't know if it's a bad or good thing, but that's how it is. The shop looked fucking cool. It's very dense with a lot of beautiful things. There was actually a quest I had to do to have the shop be set up. I actually had to help the shopkeeper get his inventory, and then he set it up, which I really like. I really like quests and JRPGs which aren't fucking useless. Like, I don't want to like gather 6 wheat for you for no reason, but I actually had to get the shop set up for him, and now it's an actual shop where I can buy stuff at, which is very cool. And the actual dungeons is pretty cool. So it's pretty much like any JRPG where you have to go to a counter and you have to find a job and then go to it. And the combat in this game is really fucking good, where pretty much you have fireballs that you can shoot. So you literally hold out your hand, you shoot fireballs. You have the secondary ability. I have 2 so far, which is, one is a thunderbolt where you hold your hand up and like around you there's an AoE of thunder. There's a secondary, which is a fire one, which you throw a fireball and it explodes into like these napalm blasts on the ground to do an AoE effect on enemies. You actually have grenades. So if you look down at your chest, you have a grenade. You pull the pin out, you throw it, it blows up. You can switch the grenade to a potion, heal up like that. You have a shield on your left arm. You can block attacks attacks, if you parry right as you get hit by an attack, it will reflect and hit the enemy back. And that, I believe, is the combat system. You can also like dash around with L2. So if you kind of just hold a direction and press L2, you'll just kind of like teleport almost. And what I love is that there's no limit from what I can tell. So you can just kind of keep doing that. And there's no annoying meter that you have to keep in mind. But that's pretty much the game. It is very cool. I'm really liking the combat. And one of the most amazing parts of this game is I was playing it. I did 3 dungeons. They all felt kind of samey, but you had to fight enemies. The enemies were kind of different, so I thought it was fine. But the thing that was very cool is at the end of, I believe, the second or third dungeon, there was a boss fight. And the boss was just like another humanoid character that looked kind of like me, but evil. But when I started the boss fight, man, it was insane because I'm looking at the bad guy. They had this cool fucking cutscene, which was like in 3D, where like he threw a sword at me, and then it did the thing where like my body separated from myself, so my character like deflected it, and they were fighting a bit, and then it transitioned to the actual fight. And it was such a fast-paced boss fight where like I see the bad guy in front of me, and within a second, he throws a sword at me, he teleports to my right, throws another sword, teleports to the left, throws another sword, and so like he did that within like 2 seconds. And so I'm looking around, seeing these swords thrown at me, and I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, I'm holding my arm up, I'm trying to shield all of them. In the arena, they had like these pillars, so I literally ran to a pillar, hit down, and I'm like, fuck, what do I do? And my brother was like watching on the TV, and he was like, Jesus Christ, what's happening? And so like I just had to fight the enemy at that speed. So like he's jumping around, I'm trying to like because this is VR, what's nice is there's no limitation of being able to attack while shielding, like where like in a normal traditional flat game you might be only able to block and not attack, or you're only able to attack and not block. But in this game, I was literally just hiding myself with the shield, putting my arm in front of the shield, and just shooting the enemy, and like hopefully they were hitting. There was an ultimate attack that unlocked during it where like I could literally grab behind my head, bring my arms back out, and I had pretty much like double Kamehamehas, and I could just shoot it at him, which is really fucking cool. And because of the vibrations, it felt very powerful when doing it. And so the boss fight was fantastic. It not only felt fast-paced for VR, but I feel like the speed of the boss fight was one where like if I was playing a normal game and like he started doing all that, I'd be like, okay, yo, I need to lock in, let me try to focus on this boss battle. But usually in VR, the few games that I played, like whenever there's a boss fight, it's clearly a very much dumbed down experience compared to a flat game. But this one was not dumbed down at all. It was like a full fast-paced fight, and luckily I was able to beat him and win. And after that experience, I kind of turned the game off because it was a bit much for me. But it is a game that I'm actually looking forward to getting back to. I may even play more later today. But yeah, Ruins of Magus, from the hour or 2 I played of it, seems really fucking cool. I wonder how long it is, because it is doing, it is checking off this stuff I love in JRPGs. The combat is cool. The story seems cool in terms of like the world. They actually have a world where like they have the system of I'm the magician, I have a researcher, there's random pieces of lore that I can pick up and read, and like, yeah, I'm actually interested in the world, which I've never been in a VR game, where I have been in a normal JRPG. So I'm very excited to continue playing Ruins of Magus and talking about it more in future episodes, hopefully. But yeah, from here we'll move on to our final segment, which is our JRPG top casual list. And for the JRPG top casual list, if you're new to the segment, it is pretty much a segment where I have a topic, a list, and I give you my top casual list. It is very casual, as in I just think about it at the top of my head. I don't really think about it too hard. It's so casual that maybe tomorrow my list would be different. But for today's list, I'm going to be doing my top VR games, not necessarily JRPGs, because I haven't played enough yet to make a list, but that is something I'd be interested in doing in the future. So I'll be giving my top 3 VR games. And again, this is just off the top of my head, so I didn't think about it too hard. But right now, at number 3, I have a game called Cactus Cowboy. At number 2, I have Beat Saber. And number 1, I have Ruins of Magus. Now, these are very recency biased because a lot of these are very new games I played. But I'll start with number 3, which is called Cactus Cowboy. Now, this is a free game on PSVR 2. And I am so annoyed because when I got my PSVR 2, the first thing I did was I Googled online, like, what are games I should try? Or like, are there any free games that are cool? Blah, blah, blah. I didn't see a single person mention this game. Everyone always mentioned, like, try the Horizon game or try, Beat Saber or try whatever. And those are cool, but you got to drop like $40, $50, $60 for those games. And like the first thing you kind of want to do is have like a free experience to see how it is. And the free experiences on PSVR aren't the best. And so there's this game called Cactus Cowboy, which looks like a fucking simple ass, very simple game. The mouth animations are clearly done in MS Paint. But when I played it, I was like, holy shit, this is a good game, because you're pretty much playing as a cactus. It's pretty much this father who's explaining this story to his son of how he used to be in the war, and you get to play as him. And yeah, you're literally in war. You have guns, you have ARs, you have pistols, you have mortars, you get to shoot around, you get to fight in this war. And it's just so fucking immersive and dope. And what surprised me is this game is free. It had a fucking comprehensive tutorial. It had fucking cutscenes. I did the first chapter, and when I was done the first chapter, I was like, oh, that was a cool game, because it's a free game. I thought it was gonna end there, but that was like chapter 0, and then it actually went to chapter 1, and I was like, holy shit. And I wasn't able to beat chapter 1 because it was just kind of hard. I let my brother play 2. It was too hard for him too. But that's a game I played, and I was like, holy shit, this is a proper game, and it's free somehow. And I believe they do have a second game which is paid, and I think they might be working on our next one too from what I saw online. But it's very fucking cool that this game is free, and it's just such a good game. I have no idea how long it is, but Cactus Cowboy, if you have a PSVR 2, I highly recommend you try it because it's free. And number 2, I have Beat Saber. Beat Saber is just like my go-to game. I played on my Quest 2 where like randomly I'd pick it up, play Beat Saber for like 30 minutes or whatever. And it is a game that I want to play again. I'm actually not going to buy it on PlayStation probably. I literally like before recording, you probably can't see it, but behind me on the counter, I have the new PSVR 2 to PC adapter. Jesus Christ, couldn't say that properly. But they have an adapter where you can connect the PSVR 2 to your PC and use it just like a PC VR headset like the Quest or anything like that. And so because of that, I can play Steam games or whatever. And so I'm likely going to get Beat Saber on Steam because the modding potential. One of the issues I had with the meta version is the songs kind of got old, and what they were adding new songs. Like they had like a BTS pack which I really liked, and one of my favorite songs is on that, but they were quite expensive, and if I wanted more I just had to pay a lot. Where like on Steam I'll probably just like buy the game and then just use mods for new songs and just play the game like that, and I think that'd be a lot more interesting personally. But yeah, Beat Saber I just fucking love. It's an amazing game. It's just really fucking fun to play, and it's really I'm not the type of person that likes rhythm games. I never understood the gameplay loop of trying to get better at a song. That's just something I never really liked. But something with Beat Saber clicked for me where I'm like, yeah, I really want to perfect the song, get perfect. Okay, let's get to the harder difficulty. Let's perfect that, etc., etc. So Beat Saber just, flipped a switch in me where I actually like doing that in this game. And number 1 is Ruins of Magus. I won't talk too much about it because I just did in the last segment of, of what I've been playing this week. But if you're just watching this segment, it is a JRPG in VR where you play as a magician. You have this researcher that helps you go through dungeons. The combat is really fucking cool with fireballs, napalm fireballs, thunderbolts, grenades, potions, parrying with the shield, very fast-paced boss battles, a JRPG town where you get to talk to NPCs, read lore, go to shops, etc. I only played for like an hour or 2, and that's already what I've experienced, so I'm very excited to get back into the game. But yeah, so far Ruins of Magus is number 1 in terms of the traditional game that I usually like to play. So number 3 is Cactus Cowboy, number 2 is Beat Saber, and number 1 is Ruins of Magus. And from here, we will end off this episode of Spill the Tearal, episode 30, the big 3-0. It's still mind-blowing that I made it this far. So we will see how long I keep doing this. I did mention when I started this podcast, my goal was 12 episodes, which is 3 months. And at that point, I will see whether I want to continue it or not. My next goal is pretty much the 1 year mark. So when I'm around 50 episodes, I will see whether I just want to end cap this podcast, whether I think it has potential, or whether I end it and just like leave it there, because I think that's fine. If it's a 50 episode thing, this is a prideful thing for me. Like I was able to do 50 episodes of a podcast, but if it is successful and it is something that I see people actually listening to and watching, I will keep doing it. And if it's something I enjoy too, because so far it is something I do still enjoy doing. It is slightly getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I gotta plan everything. It is kind of tiring, but at the end of the day, whenever I'm done recording an episode and I'm editing it, I do have a good time with what I recorded, and I am proud of the episode that I do create. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed episode 30 of Spill the Tearal. Remember to 5-star it on podcast services or thumb it up wherever you watch that's listening to it. I do upload this on the KhUnlimited YouTube channel and the Spill the Tearal YouTube channel. KhUnlimited is where I upload everything. Spill the Tearal is where I upload just the podcast, and I also do segments of the podcast when I have time to. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Remember to like, remember to comment about anything I talked about in this episode. Remember to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And I'll see you guys next week for episode 31. Peace.